All right, what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing? Hope you guys have had a great summer. I know it has been a little bit here on the channel because you guys may know of me from my NBA content. It's been a very hectic NBA offseason, but now we are getting closer and closer to the NFL season. We're about a month away until the 2025 season begins. So I wanted to start making NFL content for you guys. And we're going to be doing a ton of content leading up to the NFL season and content throughout the NFL season. So make sure you are subscribed still. We're going to start off today with my first video back. We're going to rank every single NFC team for the 2025 season into a tier list. And this is going to be a fun one. Obviously, I'm going to do a two-part episode, and we are going to have an AFC tier list that you guys will see on the channel. It will be my next video. So I'm going to break down the NFC into 6 different tiers. And I believe the NFC is not as top heavy as the AFC, but I think the middle is a lot more competitive and the bottom is a lot more competitive as well. So we have conference juggernaut. Basically, I think you can win either the conference throughout the regular season, be the 1 seed, win the conference, and go to the Super Bowl. Frisky NFC title game, so maybe a team that maybe shocked some people. Detroit a couple years ago, Washington last year. And then we have maybe 1 playoff win. I struggled naming this tier. I still think you're going to be a good team. Maybe you win on wildcard weekend, but I just can't really see you in the title game unless some things really go your way or some injury luck, because it's the NFL. At the end of the day, a lot of this is determined on injuries. Guys get hurt all the time. It's the most physical sport, or one of the most physical sports that you can have in a team aspect. So injuries can change the trajectory of a team season, maybe in 1 play. So my next tier I kind of like. It's basically last year's Commanders or Bears. You can either go 5-12 or 12-5, but you may be hyped up in a certain way, or maybe like the Panthers a couple years ago when everybody was on like the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold Panthers, or you could just be a team maybe like the Houston Texans from a couple years ago, right? Not a lot of people are talking about you and you could take that leap, or a lot of people are talking about you and you're just going to underperform. Missing playoff teams, maybe you're a fringe 7th seed towards the end of the year, but I don't think that you're going to be playing deep into January. And then number 1 pick bound, yeah, you're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFC. And obviously some random teams can kind of get thrown into that number 1 pick bound. Like the 49ers were picking in the top 12, 13 last year because of all the injuries they had. So you never know. We're going to start off with the New York Giants, a very fun team to talk about just because how active their offseason was. They didn't end up getting a quarterback in the draft. They didn't take somebody like Cam Ward. They got Abdul Carter with the 3rd overall pick to maybe build out the best defensive line in football with Brian Burns, who they traded for a year ago, Dexter Lawrence, arguably the best defensive tackle and maybe the best defensive lineman in the NFL, and then also Kayvon Thibodeau, who they drafted in the 1st round a couple years ago. They signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. They drafted Jackson Dart, so they have a much better quarterback room than they did a year ago. They have Cam Scatterbo, Devin Singletary, and Tyron Tracy. If Malik Neighbors is healthy, can be one of the best receivers in the game. I do worry about this offensive line at times because there is a lot of questionable names on it. Can there be another playmaker like a Jordan Humphrey, a Wan'Dale Robinson, a Darius Slade, and a Jalen Hyatt? Can somebody step up to be a good number 2 next to Malik Neighbors? And how is the secondary going to look? They have an interesting linebacking core, but the secondary is definitely improved throughout the draft. I mean, could the Giants win 10 games? Yeah, they could be this year's Washington Commanders. I'm just going to be safe and say they're not going to make the playoffs, but I do think they could be fringy. I could see them going 8-9, 7-10, which is miles better than what they were last year. And maybe at a point they're 6-7 and they're fighting for a playoff spot, and Russell Wilson can at least keep them competitive this upcoming season. I think they want to play hard. They want Brian Daboll to stay as their head coach going forward. And we know that their quarterback for the future, at least they think, it's going to be Jackson Dart. So they don't care if they end up winning 6, 7, 8 games this year, because most likely Jackson Dart will be starting for them in the 2026 season, and they're going to make this team even more well-balanced going forward. So yeah, I would be intrigued about putting the Giants in this tier, just because if somebody had the Houston Texans winning a playoff game 2 years ago, you would have called them crazy. If you said the Washington Commanders were going to the conference title game last year, you would have thought that person was crazy. But I do think that the Giants are probably going to miss the playoffs, but be a lot more competitive this year. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, right? They're obviously a conference juggernaut. They ended up winning the Super Bowl last year, so it's hard not to put them in this tier. There's been a lot of discourse, and I think this is why I hate the offseason in most sports. It's just like people have to debate something, and I know Eagles fans are very adamant on Jalen Hurts being a top 5 quarterback. I disagree with that. I still think Joe Burrow is better. I still think a lot of those guys, but Jalen Hurts runs this offense as perfectly as you can ask for. Saquon Barkley got a new extension in the offseason. They lost some guys like a Josh Sweat or Milton Williams, but I like what they did in the draft as well, and they are going to have still one of the more high-powered offenses in the league with Saquon Barkley, who was the best running back in the league last year, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, arguably the best offensive line in the game as well. They didn't lose Vic Fangio this offseason. They did lose Kellen Moore, who's now the head coach of the Saints, but I still think this defense can be good. Now, there could be some injuries that could come their way. Had some injury luck last year, but still had their fair share. But them getting Jahad Campbell late in the first round is amazing. Andrew Makuba in the second round, also amazing. I mean, I don't think they're a lock to win the NFC, but there's a reason why they're pretty much the odds-on favorite by a decent margin as well, because this is a complete team that can withstand injuries, and we'll see, right? Like, can some of these teams step up? Because the NFC wasn't great last year as a whole, so we'll see if there's going to be more competition at the top, and it's really hard to go back-to-back. We see that all the time. The LA Rams are such an intriguing team because everybody is high on the Rams, and I kind of am too. I love what they did this offseason. That they go from Cooper Kupp to Devontae Adams, which I thought was a massive upgrade just because Cooper Kupp has never really looked healthy. I'm excited to watch Puka healthy again because I really think he can be one of the best receivers in the game and could have a monster fantasy season. Now, Stafford's already banged up, which you don't love to see whatsoever for somebody that has all the mileage and hits on his body over the last few years, the elbow injuries, etc. So are we going to see Jimmy G throwing it to Devontae Adams this year? I don't know. I think the O-line is going to be improved, although it will look a little bit different. And this defense is fun and it's young. I love the addition of Poona Ford this offseason. Kobe Turner is still really young and still really good. Jared Verse, an improved secondary as well. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, a great head coach in Sean McVay. I think they're a frisky NFC title game team. They gave the Eagles the toughest test last year. When you look at it, you could say it was LA, you could say it was Washington, at least in that first half, but that snow game, it could have been anybody's game, and if Jalen Carter wasn't a menace on the final two plays, who knows, maybe the LA Rams were playing in the NFC Championship game, not the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't think they're as good as the Eagles, but if it comes down in January and maybe it's a little bit nicer conditions outside, maybe the Rams are still healthy, and now with Devontae Adams, I think they could be okay. I do worry about the Eagles secondary a little bit, at least with their corners, but honestly, I mean, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean were so good last year. Maybe you're asking a lot out of DeJean, who I saw was ranked higher than Malik Neighbors in the ESPN or in the NFL Top 100, which I thought was very interesting. So next up, we have the Washington Commanders, the breakout team last year. And I mean, how can you not put them in frisky NFC title game? They were in the NFC title game last year, and they got, you could say, better this offseason. We got to see what's going on with Terry McLaurin, but I assume there's going to be a contract extension done. Year 2, Jaden Daniels, who maybe isn't going to be an MVP candidate next year, but I think he could be equally as good as he was last year. They added Deebo Samuel and Larry Tunsil this offseason. Getting Josh Connerly in the draft, I think, is going to be huge because this O-line was shaky, especially when Sam Cosmi got hurt in the playoffs, so I really like what they were building over there. I trust Dan Quinn. They added Von Miller this offseason as well. The D-line with Javon Kinlaw, Daron Payne, Dorrance Armstrong. I think it's going to be really good. Hopefully Bobby Wagner's got one more good year left. We'll see how Marshawn Lattimore looks. I think the secondary has its question marks, but I think you got to respect Jaden Daniels, who's maybe not as good as Stafford, but younger, more explosive, obviously with his legs, and doesn't have like the injury history and the mileage that Stafford has. And I do think the Commanders could definitely make it to the NFC Championship game this season. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings. I think this is the perfect 2024 Commanders or 2024 Bears. If you told me that they ended up going 6-11 next year or 11-6, I would not be shocked either way, because they let Sam Darnold walk to the Seattle Seahawks, and JJ McCarthy is in his first year. He was somebody that was kind of a project coming out of Michigan that went higher than people expected and was hurt all last year, and he's going to be going to a team in a situation where he's going to have some very high expectations. They added Jordan Mason this offseason. Aaron Jones getting a little bit older. Now, JJ McCarthy is inheriting a good offensive line, and Christian Darrisaw, if he can stay healthy. They drafted Donovan Jackson. They had Brian O'Neill, and they added a couple interior guys from the Indianapolis Colts in Ryan Kelly and Will Fry. So he's got a great receiving game. He's got arguably the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, with TJ Hawkinson. This is a great team around JJ McCarthy, and they can go as far as McCarthy can take them. Can he be 80% of what Sam Darnold was last year? I think you take that if you're a Vikings fan. This defense is very fun on paper. We'll see how Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen look there. With Andrew Van Ginkel, who was a massive pickup last year, Ivan Pace, Jonathan Grenard. It's a good team. We'll see how Harrison Smith is going to be, and Byron Murphy back in Minnesota. I think there's a chance they could win the division. There's a chance they finish last place in the NFC North next year. It's not an easy schedule by any means, and there's just so much of an unknown with JJ McCarthy right now. I can't confidently say they would make the playoffs next year. I think it can go either way. And honestly, I'm going to throw the Bears in this tier as well. They're going to go as far as Caleb Williams can take them, or maybe as far as Ben Johnson can take them as well. I mean, this is a fun, exciting team on paper with Caleb Williams running the show. I'm excited to watch him in year number 2. I thought he was underrated in his rookie year. Not great, but not bad by any means. We'll see how the running backs look. Like, is DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson going to be able to be serviceable enough in the backfield for them? Or is it going to be Kyle Monangai, the former Rutgers Scarlet Knight that was drafted in the 7th round, could end up being their main guy? They have a great receiving core of DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet. This is what you need for Caleb Williams. A much improved offensive line, adding Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson this offseason. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. It may not even be a top 10. Who cares? If it's a top 17 offensive line, they're going to get so much better. And they got playmakers on the defensive side of the field as well. I love the hiring of Ben Johnson. I mean, I would not be shocked if they were this year's Commanders. Now, a lot of people are expecting them to be better, and I get that. But if you told me that they were going to be 10-7 or 7-10, I think there's still a ton of variance with this team. Maybe I bump them up because I trust Caleb Williams more than JJ McCarthy, and maybe everything else is slightly in Minnesota's favor. But like I said, I trust Ben Johnson a lot, and I'm excited to watch this team. They could win the division, they could not make the playoffs, but I do think they have the excitement factor, and that's pretty much the teams in this tier. Like, I do think they have the talent, the excitement factor to be at the top of the NFC, but they do need some things to go right for them that they didn't have in years past. And next up, we have the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to have them in number 1 pick bound. They're pretty much the odds-on favorite to be the worst team in the NFC, and I don't disagree. They have a rookie quarterback, maybe in Tyler Shuck, maybe it's going to be Spencer Rattler. Alvin Kamara is getting a year older. They have a first-year head coach in Kellen Moore. Chris Olave's got his injury history. Hopefully Rashid Shaheed can stay healthy this year. I don't mind their offensive line whatsoever with Trevor Penning. Love the draft pick of Kelvin Banks. Talise Fuaga had a solid rookie year as well. The defense could definitely be hit or miss as well, but I would bet a lot of money. They're finishing with maybe the 15th or 16th worst record in the NFC than maybe being in playoff contention. Because if they are, then yeah, Kellen Moore is either going to be coach of the year or Tyler Shuck might be actually the guy there in New Orleans. So next up, we have the Carolina Panthers. Another team that I want to like a ton, but I still think they have a lot of holes, specifically on the defensive side of the field. I think they're going to be in the Giants tier. Like, I would probably guess that Russell Wilson would be better next year in a vacuum than Bryce Young. Now, they do have playmakers on defense, right? Derek Brown, Nick Scorton, Trayvon Moore, JC Horn, obviously, but I do think there's going to be some holes, specifically with the linebackers, maybe with the corner depth. Can Tim McMillan be a wide receiver 1 for this team? Chuba Hubbard was a great running back last year, and I'm just excited for Bryce Young and Dave Canales in year 2 together. The offensive line could be hit or miss as well, but I'm excited what they have building over there, and it's healthy next year. I think they'll be better, and I think if you go 7-10 and Bryce Young shows the flashes as you expected him to as a number 1 overall pick back in that 23 draft, you're perfectly fine with that season if you're the Panthers, and then you have your eyes set on the 2026 season when you should have a little bit more cap space and obviously all your draft capital back as well. So next up, we have the Detroit Lions, who lost their defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn to the Jets. They lost Ben Johnson to their division rival, the Chicago Bears. I think Frank Ragnow retiring is a big deal, but I still think they're a conference juggernaut. I still trust Dan Campbell. We'll see how the replacements to the coordinators are going to look. But Jared Goff is not a great quarterback, but he's a serviceable quarterback for this team. They have 2 playmaking running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs, who's one of the best young running backs in this league, and David Montgomery, a legit wide receiver 1 and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and a legit wide receiver 2 in Jameson Williams, a legit tight end 1 caliber player in Sam Laporta. The offensive line still is questionable because of the retirements and the turnover, but you have one of the best offensive linemen in the league in Penei Sewell. You still have Taylor Decker and Graham Glasnow, and hopefully Decker will be healthy at least come playoff time. That's what they need. They're getting Aiden Hutchinson back. They have Jack Campbell, Ali McNeil, Terrion Arnold, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch. They signed DJ Reed this offseason. This is still a very good team that was the number 1 seed in a loaded race for the 1 seed last year in the NFC between Detroit, Minnesota, and the Philadelphia Eagles. I know it was disappointing that they ended up losing to the Washington Commanders in their only playoff game, but on paper, I still like them a little bit more than the Rams and the Commanders. And I know the Washington Commanders beat them last year, but I wonder if that would happen again. But hey, if you wanted to put Washington and Detroit on the same tier, I would probably just have them like this with Philadelphia in its own tier. But I do think Detroit is still going to be a very good regular season team. But we're going to see how much Ben Johnson meant to that squad. And next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys, a team that I really want to like this year. I think there's a chance that they end up either 12-5, 5-12. Like, they could be in that realm, 11-6, 6-11, 10-7, 7-10. It's really hard to predict what the Dallas Cowboys are going to be. Now, last year they had so many injuries, but I'm excited to watch Dak Prescott this year. They got a good wide receiver too in George Pickens. They've already got some injuries to Tyler Guyton on the offensive line, but I like them getting Tyler Booker in the draft. We still need to see what the Micah Parsons extension is going to look like. They just re-signed Jake Ferguson. I don't love this secondary either. I think there's a lot of question marks over there, and I don't trust their defense. And to be honest with you, I may talk myself out of them in the playoffs. I do think are more complete teams, even though I do think Dak Prescott will be better than Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy in 2025. I just don't love their defense. I think their running game is so volatile right now with Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and rookie Jaden Blue. The offensive line should be better. They still have some defensive playmakers, and I think Dak Prescott will be good. They have a new head coach in Brian Schottenheimer. It just may take some getting used to, and hopefully for their sake, they could be a little bit better in 2026. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers. Oh man, this is a tough team to really figure out right now, just because last year was just a year from hell with all the injuries they had. They had to pay Brock Purdy this offseason, so they had to let some guys leave them in free agency like Javarius Ward and Javon Hargrave. I have questions about the offensive line and the receiving core with Brandon Ayuk hurt to start off the year. We'll see how Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings look. Can they get anything out of like a DeMarcus Robinson or a Jacob Cowing? They obviously have one of the best tight end fullback combos in the league in terms of blocking in George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. They had some standouts defensively last year in the secondary, but I still think it could be a little volatile this year. I'm excited to watch Michael Williams in San Francisco. They have Fred Warner. They lost Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw this offseason as well. I think maybe their peak is one playoff win, but they end up making maybe the wild card, or maybe they win the division, but they're not getting a bye and they end up losing during the divisional round. I'm excited to watch Brock Purdy healthy again this year, though, and Christian McCaffrey healthy this year as well. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, a team I feel like people are getting very high on. Now, Walter Nolan, their first round pick, ended up recently just getting injured, and the D-line wasn't great last year, but they added Josh Sweat this offseason. They have one of the best safeties in the game in Budda Baker. I think they go as far as maybe Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison can take them. I don't love the wide receiver depth outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., and you're putting a lot of pressure on the former 4th overall pick, but you also have Trey McBride, one of the best receiving tight ends in the game. Connor's getting a little bit older. You got to see more out of Trey Benson. I think it's a big year for Jonathan Gannon, but I don't think the Cardinals end up making the playoffs. That may be a hot take, but I'm a little bit higher on at least like San Francisco, the Rams. I still think the Vikings can be better than the Cardinals, even if JJ McCarthy is like 50% of Sam Darnold last year. I still believe in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I kind of want to put them in this tier. They just barely lost to the Commanders in the wild card round last year. I think Baker Mayfield is extremely underrated. Everybody loves Bucky Irving, and rightfully so. You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, Cade Otton. Very deep receiving core with some injuries right now. I'm excited to watch Graham Barden next year. We'll see how healthy Tristan Wirfs is going to be at the start of the year. They got great playmakers on the defensive side of the field, more so in that front seven, but still playmakers in the secondary. And I like the pickup of Hassan Reddick this offseason. I don't maybe love Todd Bowles as a head coach at times. We're going to see how they look without Liam Cohen, but I still think they could win the NFC South. I expect them to win the NFC South, and they could definitely make it to the divisional round yet again. But I think if they met Washington or LA, or maybe even San Fran, I'd like them a little bit more. The Seattle Seahawks are also a tough team to figure out. How is Sam Darnold going to look with Mike McDonald? I can't put too much faith into Cooper Kupp just because of how injury riddled the last few years have been. I love the running back duo of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. The offensive line got better this offseason, right, with Gray Zabel. Charles Cross has got better last year. Same with Abraham Lucas. AJ Barner is their starting tight end. They drafted also Elijah Arroyo. And the defense is good, but it's not great. I don't know if I can confidently say that they are going to make the playoffs next year. I think I may reorder this tier at the end of it. I see them going 8-9, 9-8, and I think I like the chances of Chicago and Minnesota. I think Geno is just as good, if not better, than Sam Darnold. Yes, Darnold is younger, but Darnold should have a better offensive line and some better weapons than what Geno had last year. Now, here's a team that I kind of can get excited about. We're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons next. A part of me wants to say they could miss the playoffs, but they play in a division where they're going to get the Panthers, the Saints, and the Bucks 6 times next year. Michael Penix has a lot of, I guess, upside to him, right? He showed some flashes last year, but they have a good backup quarterback if it doesn't go well, and Kirk Cousins, who is a little bit more healthy. We'll see if they ended up trading him before the season started. They have a top 5 running back in Bijan Robinson. They have a great wide receiver duo in Darnell Mooney and Drake London. I can't really get bought into Kyle Pitts this year. And the defense has a lot of volatility to it as well. I think they could end up 11-6 this year, just because they play in that weaker division, because we could see the upside of Michael Penix with Raheem Morris this season. I struggle sometimes with like these four: Seattle, Atlanta, Arizona, and Dallas, but I'm definitely going to, I think, put one or two back up here just because I don't want to have so many teams missing the playoffs. I will have the Green Bay Packers in maybe one playoff win. It also wouldn't shock me if they finished last in the NFC North. I think Jordan Love is still a very good quarterback, and I know had down moments last year, but they drafted Matthew Golden. You don't have like the best top heavy receiver group, but it is at least deep. Now, Malik Willis showed that he's a good backup quarterback last year if Jordan Love got hurt. Josh Jacobs was a great running back. I love the extension for Zach Tom. They signed Aaron Banks. You have Elton Jenkins. They have two solid tight ends in Kraft and Musgrave. I like their defense, but I don't love their defense. I think the secondary is going to be pretty bad outside of Xavier McKinney. Jair Alexander is in Baltimore, but I loved Edgar and Cooper last year. You still have Lucas Van Ness, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary. They all can't be as bad, or Quay Walker, or disappointing as some of them were last year. And I trust Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur has had a very good track record as a head coach so far with Aaron Rodgers, and last year with Jordan Love, and 2 years ago with Jordan Love beating the Packers in the wildcard weekend. And last year, I mean, they were at least still competitive against the Eagles. Maybe don't turn it over on the first possession. I think they can at least get one playoff win. So if I wanted to, I think I kind of want to bump down Detroit and have Philadelphia as a conference juggernaut. I still think they're in the tier of its own, but I do think one of LA, Washington, and Detroit could maybe upset Philadelphia in some way, shape, or form last year. I like these three getting at least one playoff win. There is the potential for that. I think Minnesota or Chicago could get a playoff win as well, but I do think they could end up missing the playoffs entirely. And if I was going to talk myself into maybe like two teams here that are like fringe, like, or the 24 Commanders or Bears tier, it's tough. Like, I don't think I could talk myself into Carolina or Dallas or the Giants. So it's two of either Arizona, Atlanta, or Seattle. I think I trust Seattle in a way. I think Sam Darnold is at least better than Michael Penix. I'd still rather have Kyler Murray than Sam Darnold, but I also think that they have a solid enough receiving core, an improved offensive line, a good running game, and a solid front seven and secondary. Then I'm basically choosing between the Atlanta Falcons and the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to choose the Atlanta Falcons. They just play in a weaker division. Like, Arizona's got to go through Seattle. Same with Seattle. And then Arizona also has to go through LA and San Francisco. So I basically 11 teams here. I would say with confidence that I do think these 7 can make the playoffs next year. And then it's a lot of volatility with Minnesota, Chicago, Seattle, Atlanta that can maybe leapfrog a San Francisco if they're just not going to look as well balanced as they have in years past. Maybe Tampa does not look great, at least to start off the year. Maybe Green Bay sees even more regression on the defensive side of the field, and maybe just Arizona or Atlanta, or maybe, who knows, the Giants or the Cowboys are so good that they take one of those spots, but more so I think it's Minnesota or Chicago. And I hope you guys did enjoy that NFC tier list. If you agree, let me know down below, but I'm sure you're going to let me know if you disagree as well. If you did enjoy, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Like I said, we're going to be back uploading consistently on the channel, so make sure you are subscribed, and I'll catch you guys in the AFC tier list. Peace.